Antwerp's Scheldt Quays are currently being renovated, and it is not the first time. This is the birthplace of the city by the stream, and from here it developed into what it is today. For centuries, Antwerp had vlieten, or inner ports that connected the city with the river. It took until the 1880s for a straight quay wall to be built. Journey back in time with us and get to know the Scheldt Quays. The history of Antwerp dates back to at least Gallo-Roman times. In those days, Antwerp was a link in the trade network stretching over land and water. Back then, the Scheldt River was narrower and less affected by the tides. Several centuries later, Antwerp developed into a small trading post protected by an earthen wall and encircled by a moat. Ships docked at the quays. The inhabitants back then lived in houses of wattle and daub. Just before the year 1000, the German Emperor Otto II made Antwerp a margravate. The city is to help defend the western border of the Holy Roman Empire. A stone wall was built, and various urban functions such as religion, jurisprudence, trade, and government were organized. Today, archaeologists are researching the history of the fortress. They are digging for remnants of the Viesskaya. This was the old court of justice, and they are investigating the origins and development of the fortress. Slightly south of the fortress, there was another protrusion into the Scheldt. This is where St. Norbert founded St. Michael's Abbey in the 12th century. Here too, archaeologists are busy studying the remnants of the monastery and the history of its residents. Archaeologists have identified the abbey wall, monastery buildings, and the cellars, and are now digging beneath the cloister. In the late Middle Ages, the roadstead underwent dramatic changes. Urban expansions transformed the roadstead into an imposing facade of city ramparts, vlieten, towers, and gates. Ships from distant lands laid at anchor, waiting to unload their cargo. North of the medieval town centre, you could find Newtown. The boats penetrated deeper into the city via the vlieten. On the corner of St. Petersvliet stood the brick crane, a large hoist used to load and unload ships. This earliest known port crane was recently discovered during a preliminary survey. Its foundation is well preserved. The inner port walls have also remained virtually intact underground, providing an accurate picture of where the waters of the Scheldt entered the city. At the medieval mooring place near Beer Wharf, the landing quay was nearly 2 meters lower than it is today. The quay walls and the passage at Little Beer Gate have also remained intact underground. South of St. Michael's Abbey, St. Michael's Bastion protruded into the Scheldt. For centuries, the bastion assured the city's southern defense. Then, in 1800, the roadstead changed again. Napoleon grasped the economic and military potential of the city by the stream. He had all of the city walls and gates demolished in order to make room for a modern port. The vlieten to the north continued to serve as an inner port. The southern part of the quay was converted into an arsenal with shipyards. Here, the warships for Napoleon's planned invasion of England were built. In the late 19th century, the next transformation took place, the straightening of the Scheldt Quays. Of the fortress, only Hutstein Castle remained. Hundreds of houses were torn down and the Vlieten were filled in. Since then, the quays consist of a single long wharf, allowing the docking, loading and unloading of large ships. Today, the Scheldt Quays are undergoing yet another sweeping transformation. Archaeologists now have the chance to find out what has been preserved underground. 4 zones are being studied. The brick crane and the Vlieten in the north, the fortress zone as the oldest urban centre next to the Steen, the Beer Wharf, St Michael's Abbey and the corresponding bastion.